Welcome to 519Connect, where the Windsor Police Service connects with members of our community. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Welcome to 519Connect. I'm your host, Jamie Ajete Nelson, Diversity Officer for the Windsor Police Service. And today we're here on our second episode, and we got a special guest. And I think this episode is going to be called Community Activist. So this is how I'm going to start this. Community, a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. Activist, a person who campaigns to bring political and social change. John Elliott. John Elliott was born and raised in Windsor, a leader, a mentor to those who were ready to listen and those who might not have been ready to listen. His realness is not only in his passion, but in his actions. As the young kids say now, he's outside. He doesn't hide. He says what needs to be said, and he acts on what the community needs. He isn't controversy. He's positivity. He's been married for 29 years and has 7 children, but he's been a father figure to many more. He's been employed by the Sandwich Teen Action Group, also known as STAG. What is STAG? STAG, for those of you who don't know, is a community-based nonprofit organization responding to the needs of youth in Windsor and Essex County. They are committed to providing programs for positive life experiences that enable youth at risk to find support, cope with problems, and lead healthy lives. Respect yourself, respect others. That's STAG's motto, and it's a motto I truly believe in. John is one of the founders of STAG, and he's watched it grow, mature, and evolve into an organization that nurtures youth into leaders. I won't say much more about PICS. Those in the community know him as that. So we're going to let him talk his talk. So let's have a conversation. Welcome, John.
Hey, thank you, Jamie, and you guys. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, I had to look you up. You know, there's a lot about you. You Google someone, and there's so much, and it just shows your presence in the community. But before we get going,
all right,
I got to ask you about that nickname.
Boy. Yeah, that's a classic. That's a classic for sure. So I have an older sister. She's probably a year and a few months older than me. My mom named me John, my middle name Michael. So she was a year old at the time. She kept trying to say John Michael, and she kept saying John Pickles. So Pickles stuck with me. I'm 61 years old. A lot of cousins still only know me by that. They approach me and go to call me Pickles. I can't call you that. And I'm like, well, my name's John. But after a minute or so, someone's going to call me Pickles. So it's just, it's a fact of life for me. And then the teenagers, they shortened it to Pics. That's where the Pics part come from. The teenagers shortened it. I guess they didn't like Pickles, so they're like, nah, Pics is more of the case, right? So yeah, it's I answer to both. I laugh about it. I can tease about it because it was, all in good taste on how I got it. But if someone calls me John, I'll answer. If somebody calls me Pickles or Pics, I'll answer, right? So it's it's definitely one of those life things, but yeah, it's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, you see the evolution in the name, right? Pickles, and then you've been around when the kids, they got to add their little spice on it, so it's relevant and cool. So you're doing your thing, and Pics, who knows what it's gonna be a few years from now?
Yeah.
The kids come with something new.
Yeah. And I mean, I wear it well. I often laugh when I see, like, we're in the world of social media, and then, I'll be reading through things online, and all of a sudden I come across something, and then somebody will say Pickles, and I'm like, okay, that person knows who I am, because, if you know Pickles from way back then, it's somebody that I definitely know. But yeah, it's good. And, it's a bit of a hook for the kids, and they know what I stand for, you know what I'm saying? But I'm all about, doing positive things and being there for my community, and, life is good. What can I say?
All right, that's big. That's big. So, we're talking about the kids. I mentioned STAG, but let's elaborate on it a little bit. Like, where does STAG come from? How did it start? And, in the era of John Elliott, where did that fit in your life?
Yeah, so I came, a bit of the history, I came in 1993. So the history of it is it was founded by 2 area police officers, West End guys, Dave Doige, Mike McKenzie, infamous for, who they were in this community back then. guys that went to Forster High School, guys that grew up in the community and seen the need for something for the kids, right? So, that was their vision. Then they were looking for someone that could work with the youth and had a good feel for the community. So that's kind of where I slid in. After probably 2 years, they realized, yeah, this is our guy. So they handed it off to me because, they were still working their jobs and had families. So, that's kind of where my start was. And I always knew that was my passion, was to work with the young people, because right out of high school, I had got my first job at College Avenue Community Center. So a lot of these kids back then were, say 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. When I got to STAG, a lot of them were the same kids, but now they were teenagers. So they knew me coming right in the door. So it was a perfect fit. Also, I grew up right in St. Joseph Projects. I lived there, 14 years of my life, from the time I was 13 right up into adulthood. And, I remember the West End, nowadays where it has that label as being a real bad end of town. That's where that label come from. Because back then, yeah, it was tough, man. It was as rough as it came. I think they compared, the West End, St. Joseph Projects, Bloomfield, and the rivalry was Drouillard Road at the time. Mm-hmm. That was a pretty tough neighborhood too. So I'd seen it all. As a young person growing up in the neighborhood, I'd seen it all. Like everything someone could imagine, negative and bad. We seen it. We lived with it. We grew up with it. So I was one of the fortunate ones. When I tell this story, I said, you know what? I got out by the grace of God. And I had a real strong mom. My mom was tough, right? You ask my other brothers too, boy, the old lady didn't play, right? I was scared. I was scared of her till I was about 21, right? If you can imagine. But she was real stern and disciplining us. And I'm thankful. Like, as I got older, I'm very thankful for, her not giving in to me, wanting to hang out with the fellows after hours when I know I needed to go to school the next day. And it kept me in bounds in a lot of ways, right? So I didn't get in trouble with, the law or drugs or anything, right? So, moving forward, by the time I came back, when I came to STAG, I was very, I didn't like to go to the neighborhood where I grew up because it had a lot of bad memories. I knew a lot of my friends down there. A lot of them died right in those projects, hung themselves, asphyxiated themselves, shot and killed. It all went on there, right? So it took me a while before I could actually go into the community where the project housing are, where it is. So, but I think one time when we were setting up our Advocating Young Minds program, we're doing computers for kids or something over there in the St. Joseph, I finally felt what my calling was to the entire community, right? And, just to let those old ghosts kind of, settle. So I'm grateful that, I was able to come to terms with a lot of it, because for me to be able to get a lot of work done, not only in STAG, but into the outer community, yeah, I had to conquer, we call them demons. And basically that's what they were with me too, right? Because I didn't want to get drugged back down into that, because, a lot went on. And, I kept one thing about me, I keep good files. I kept all my files, good and bad, because the bad files are also a part of your life. And to have those as a reference to go back to and remember and then share when I'm like teaching the young people, right? Because sometimes, they come from a different world. But when I can connect the two, I said, listen, here's how it was when we were growing up. And here's why we didn't do certain things. Not just say, don't do it. Here's why we didn't do it, because this is what it led to, and even my kids, I was able to show them different things as they were growing up, and people that I grew up with that, they were the same as me, but they went down the bad road, and that's where their life ended. And they asked the question, why was that? And I said, well, it's choices, the choices we make in life, and being mentally tough, having that mental toughness to, when you fall down, man, just get up. Not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up, right?
Yeah, no, that's perfectly said. You talk about the demons, and now they articulate it unlike they did back in the day. They talk about PTSD, and it's not necessarily, it has to be something, traumatic, things like that. But like you said, picking yourself up And I feel through STAG, just talking to people who've been through the program, when they were down, STAG was that place that helped them get back up.
Oh yeah.
That's something, a testament to you, to that program, and in that area, you saw that need, and it's amazing. Like you said, full circle. Came back.
Yeah, they and when the kids come, they automatically get that sense that it's neutral. It's kind of a neutral place, and we've established over years that if there's any trouble with anything, it stays outside the door. Once you come here, it's a neutral place. It's for everyone. The teaching, and you mentioned, we taught that respect yourself, respect others. And I hold them to it. We don't have a big list of rules there. That's the only rule. And, to explain it to some of the kids, and I'm like, listen, you don't see me walking around cursing and doing this and that. I don't do it, you don't do it. I run the place and I don't do it. So you don't do it, and you won't have a problem. And it's negotiated very easy. Certain things like drugs and fights, and it doesn't go on. So those are the kinds of things it'll get you put out for a while, and hopefully you'll get back in. But I don't, I kind of use the term, I'm not the school, because this is your privilege to come here, not your right. Right?
There it is.
So when I send them home, and they know, right? We come back the next day, we take it up, it's done, it's over, and we keep going, right? So yeah, but it's a good program, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished. I get a lot of the credit because I'm the front guy, man, but there's been lots of people back then that put into the center, a lot of people now that do a lot of things behind the scene to make it a great program. So
yeah, no, that's great. You talk about, leaving it at the door when you come in. These are some of the life skills. I feel you get life skills from everywhere, but I think it's important when, you're giving these kids the choice. Like you said, it's a privilege. You're not making them do that. You just got to follow these rules, and, you'll be not necessarily, I want to say, accepted, but, things will go a lot smoother, and you're creating a culture. Like you said, you lead by example. When those kids, they might need a timeout, they're seeing everyone come in, and you see the kids, they're having fun, they're enjoying it, they're learning something. Kids don't want to miss out on that, and that's important that you said they're allowed back. Second chances, third chances. You can never give up on these kids. And you talk about the alumni of STAG. I've seen a lot of them. I work with some of them, and I've seen some of them on the provincial, the national, and the world level from STAG. And it's always funny to see. I find out after, I'm like, they've gone through this program. What are some of the programs that STAG happen that, the community might not know about, and how they can be a part of it?
Yeah, and we do social rec, and that's one of the things right now that we're becoming like life after COVID, and some would question, well, what goes on at STAG? The kids just go there and hang out, and the kind of thing, and in essence, yeah, that's it's a place where it's a release from school, because when they're in school all day, and after school, they want to find somewhere to go where it's safe. They can be with their friends. They can play sports in the gym. They can play, they have the pool table room, which is a gathering. The girls, they have their own space there. The girls have it looks like an apartment flat. So they gather together every Wednesday, just the girls, do their own thing, no pressure from boys. They have female coordinators to talk with them. We have a fitness program. We're getting ready to redesign the fitness program there. But I always say, if you come there, like, to talk about it is one thing, but you have to come there to kind of see the place in action. When it's moving and everything like that. And it's kind of non-structured, right? Because the kids don't want to feel like they're in school. Like, come here, you need to do this. Come here, you got to do that. So they come. The rooms are designed as activity rooms, and they can decide what they want to do. And sometimes you just see them plainly sitting around in the pool table room on some of the couches, and they're on their phones and just having conversation with each other and laughing and playing, and that's all it is, right? But they're safe, right? They're not in the streets where trouble can find them, or they're going to find trouble. They're safe. And I used to say to some of the, I have to have it sometimes with the boys. Some of the boys don't want to listen sometimes. And I would say to them, okay, let me ask you a question. Why do you think some of the bad guys that are in the neighborhood don't come here? I said, because they don't want to deal with me coming here, because they know the kind of program I run. So we've made it a real safe place for the young people. And, the community's welcome. Like, there's no invitation to adults, parents, or anyone. Don't see a lot of parents unless, it's something why they need to come in. But, I always say the doors are open. Come on in. Anyone.
That's perfect. Yeah. The conversations happen, and through those conversations, collaborations happen. I've talked to people at work and in different organizations where you're on those boards and those chairs, and you're a director of different areas. And I think I would feel, if I was in that setting at STAG, you bring a little bit of that structure to them, because they can talk to you about something. I feel like you could tell any kid in there, I have an interest in this, or I feel passionate about this. You can guide them, and that's through collaboration and conversation. And they're doing that there and learning how to do that, because kids can be on their phones all day, but at STAG they're there. They might be on their phones, but the lost art of conversation. I feel like your program really teaches that, and that's a type of structured, unstructured type of learning there, and it's great. I've been there, and I've come and just been a fly on the wall, and it's good to see. And you bring a lot of people back, successful or people who have gone through some tough times. And what message do you ask your alumni to bring back to STAG? Well,
it's I have currently right now there are youth that grew up at STAG that are on our board of directors, right? So that's one of the areas. I think one of the new things we're going to be doing online on Sound Student Action Group website is putting out for donations. It's like a sponsor package. I'm trying to reach the alumni, to give back to the center monetary, because that it's definitely needed. We're a not-for-profit, and where's the money to keep the doors open? But I want them to, wherever they're at in the world, and that's a good thing about the social media and the Facebook, you're able to reach out and see some of the people that are not in Windsor no more, but that came through STAG. So that's another area, where I like to see the alumni. And oftentimes, I'll be at work. I remember the one I could just think off the top of my head, one of the boys that grew up, he went to Catholic Central and moved away. I forgot all about him until I seen him. Car pulls up, I'm leaving out, and it's one of the young guys that grew up at STAG. He was in town visiting from Houston. It was right around the time when they're having those big old rains there too, right? Mm. So he come with him, his wife, and their young daughter, their baby daughter, right? And I'm like, wow, look at you. And John, I was in town, and I had to bring my wife to show her, the center that I grew up at, right? He was doing real estate. He was a real estate person. I think she was in dental or something. But and that happens periodically, right? Someone will just come by, and they're all grown up, so it takes me a minute to peel back some of the years, but I always remember the young people, eh? But my goal now is to the shoes that I've created for the young people to follow in, the next generation that will run STAG. And it's like, where are you going, John? I'm not going anywhere. I'll be on the board. I'll go from working in the office to the board of directors. So, and I live 5 minutes down the road. So, I'm not going to disappear like that. I have I have part of the responsibility to make sure STAG is always in the community, but I'm winding it down. I'm 30 years in, so couple more years, and there's young people that now we're putting in place to carry on, with STAG. But like I said, I'll be on the board, so I won't be far. But the daily, everyday part of it, yeah, I'm kind of long in the tooth, getting a little bit long in the tooth. I said, well, John, I said, I'm tired, man. I truly am, right? Some days. The administrative part I could do, but I also have some good people. There are STAG alumni people that are in place to take over the center, man. And that's what you want to do, right? I don't want to be there working in the office till I'm 70 years old, because I don't want to give up the ghost, right? Yeah. Like, just pass the torch, and won't be too far to where they can reach out if they have a question, or, I need to be there somewhere. I won't be too far that they can't access me, but it's almost time. It's becoming time.
There it is. When I think about it, because the other day we talk about social media and the platforms. I saw you hooping the other day online. Mahari posted a video and you pulled up on them. You let them know the shot was coming if they don't respect the shot. And I love basketball. My era is Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird growing up, and Kobe and LeBron. And I was just thinking about this. You are your own entity, your own success, your own greatness. But if I had to parallel it to anything, you're Jordan, right? And then, you got some Kobe's and LeBron, and everyone asks who's the greatest, but I think they're all great. And the reason why I look to Jordan, he set the mold. People emulate it, and then they make it their own. And there's others in this community that you've mentored, that you've helped, who've gone through the program, who are now doing the same thing. Do you have any tips or a statement on how people trying to start their own or work with others, what they should do when we talk about collaborations, like how to go into it?
Mm-hmm. And I had some good teachers, Jamie, for sure. I've been very blessed in my life to have had people in my corner all through life guiding me, right, disciplining me, teaching me the ropes of different things. And certainly a testament to STAG was Mike and Dave, who I mentioned, and Red Wilson, Uncle Red. We know him as Uncle Red. And when I came there, and a real gruff kind of guy, right? Like, God rest his soul, just like old Union style gruff, right? And one of the things he told me was, John, you have to learn how to work with people because you can't do it all by yourself. So you have to learn how to work with them. And I took that piece of wisdom from him, and man, it's came to fruition tenfold, because everyone coming in the door is potentially somebody that we can help, we can work with, we can partner with, we can collaborate with. So come on in. What are we up to today? And the other person I want to mention before I forget, Bob Williams, who was a local businessman, owned a mailing company, and he was brought in around 95 with from Mike McKenzie to help us with the financial business part of it. And I mentored probably 2.5 years with him on how to run a business, right? Just how to keep your books in order, all your financial, and to have guys like those in my corner to mentor me, and unfortunately Bob passed away too. Him and Red, Bob passed away 5 days of Red at the time, right? So it was a tough time. But I remember, as sad as I was about it, I knew STAG would go on because they both give me everything they had, right? So there's no way that STAG wouldn't continue on the path that it's on. And so I've been put in the position now where I need to leave it to the next generation of young people coming. And sometimes you can't work with everybody, right?
Yep.
But I always tell, don't burn bridges. I always tell people, don't burn your bridge with people, because you never know when it's going to come full circle. You may have an opportunity to work with that same person again. Sometimes you have to stop business where it's at. Okay, we'll just stop there and be done with our business. But don't burn the bridge, right? Because you never know. And one of the things I say, we work with young people, Jamie. So when you gain young people's trust, they trust you, man. So when you get the young people to trust you, don't betray the trust. I've always been very conscious of what I teach them not to do and how I live my life outside of that, because I don't want to say this is the reason why you shouldn't do that in your life. And then as soon as they turn their back, I'm doing that exact thing. I teach them like I was taught the right things to help them further in their life. Some of it they might not get until they're later on in their life. I remember one of those lessons from my mom. It took me probably into my 40s until I got it. And I mean, the thing dropped on my head like a big old raindrop, right? That's how long it took. But when it did, I realized, wow, I finally got what, so those are kind of some of the life lessons I try to give back. And, I didn't invent them. I was a product of a lot of it, right? So I've always known, I've always had a responsibility to do something with my life because a lot of people invested in me to do something with it. So now my job and my passion with the young people is give them as much of that goodness as I've gotten and set them on, pathways to, roads in life to help them succeed. And I think that's why, a lot of times, and I kind of don't like all that attention I get as the person that runs STAG like that, because I have a lot of great people alongside of me, right, working behind the scenes. They might not be seen, but they're there with me to keep the center going and have been to where it is now. So, I guess all I would want to say to somebody is if when you're working with people, just be honest about your work, man. Like honesty is a good start. Be honest, be loyal, and then things are going to work how they're going to work themselves out. So I don't really have a real big recipe to it, but it's one of the things Bob used to say, Uncle Bob, was that, John, don't rest on what you did yesterday. What are you doing today? And man, I like that one because I'm always cooking with, from one day to the next, right? It's like, what are we up to today? I don't know. Well, we're not worried about what we did yesterday. What's today happening? So we're always pushing, it that way. And there's so much more, I believe, that's going to come out of STAG from the next generation to run it after me, because they're new people too. You can keep some of the old. I like the old rules, I say. It's one of my secrets, and I'll kind of let the cat out of the bag, to working with the youth is because there are a lot of those disciplines that my folks taught me. My folks, my friends, parents and stuff. Yeah. Those rules where you don't move, man. They don't move. You can't manipulate them. You can't compromise. It's like, this is what it is. This is what you're not going to do, why you're not going to do it. And it's going to set you on the right course. And the kids know, right? Yeah. The kids nowadays, man, they're up on everything. So you can't trick them with just anything. They have to be solid kind of disciplines. And I got a lot of that. So I'm thankful because, I share it with the kids now, and then I try to keep an openness of what's going on in their world today. Because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world today with the young people that we never had that, right?
That's true. Yeah. We got to evolve with them. We talk about social media. They're hearing about things before I can even see them, and it's tough. But you said something perfect there. Is that you're moving with that transition. You're not you have your foundations, but at the same time you might have to say it differently so they understand it. But those are the core foundations. It's some things you can't change. Some lessons, some disciplines. They are what they are, and they don't need to be changed because they work. But the communication aspect of it, which I feel you're great at, and that proves to your longevity is, you're talking, like you said, they called you Pickle, back then they call you Pix now. So it's changing. You're seeing the groups change and you're able to keep up with it and not ashamed. For me, when technology starts happening, I could shy away, but why? Keep relevant with it and, reach out. I can always say I don't know something, and we had a few co-op students. They taught me a lot. I would just pick their brains, right, just so I can help mold what I'm working with and what I'm doing. So that's great that you're still doing that. And I want to talk about our collaborations. And I'm in recruiting, of course, and I feel like we have some people from STAG who are now officers, and those alumni. What do you think made them such, viable, great candidates for the Windsor Police, being a part of that STAG program?
A couple of them off the top of my head without mentioning who they were. And I remember one of the young men sitting across from me in the office, and we got talking, and, what do you want to do? And I want to be a police officer. I'm like, really? Right? But already knowing that, like, he was, I think at college at the time, but grew up right through STAG, and having all of those qualities in a person that would embody what a police officer, right? Because it's a tough job. Like, my hat goes off to police officers all over, because it is a tough job. I've been able to see it up close, closer than some people. But, you know, I would always say to the young people that you have to be on board, right? You're on board with everything what you're doing, right? And that goes along with being, living like a clean life, right? Like not trying to be below board. And then when it suits you, you want to be on board to apply for a profession like the police. So, you know, just, you know, the one guy being right from this community, and I know he'll always be be from this community, right? And to teach others, like, listen, you might not have grown up here, but what they say about this end of the community, it's not everything what you hear. Come on, I'll show you around. You know, and he's brought some of the officers by, introduced them to me, and, you know, they come from some of the outer community, so they don't know, right? So it's one of those things, well, if you hear, you know, the West End, a bad end, I guess it must be a bad end. But if you're introduced to it, and then people in the community to see that, wow, you know, you have a place like STAG here, wow, that's something. You know, there's this guy, John Elliott, and I met him, and he sort of comes across like a stand-up kind of guy, right? I didn't know that, you know, they had people like that. So, you know, one of the things, the officers for me, is I know they're going to represent well with their not only their families, but the community. So, you know, after that, it's, you know, it's one of those professional choices, right? I don't know, you know, once you get into the process, then you guys know it's a long process. But for the officers that have came through STAG doors that are now officers, they're just solid people, solid guys, right? Like, you know, when you do a job, you do the job to the fullest. You don't cut corners.
There it is.
To do it, right? You do the job to the fullest, and you remain who you are while you're doing it, right? You don't have to change your stripes or anything like that. You be who you are. You do the best job you can do, and then you go home at night, man. So
there it is. And I think those officers bring a whole new concept of diversity, right? You know, most of the time people are caught up on, you know, skin color and things like that. But where you're from, the life experiences you lived, people you know, and how you've had to, you know, navigate through life. And I think STAG just gives you some of those life quality skills. And I always tell people who are coming through when they're in different types of programs like that, I'm like, that's a bonus. Articulate that, because that's what we need in a service. People that represent our community, right? And they can talk to everyone. And I feel when I go to STAG, there's so much happening. There are so many different groups and so many different lifestyles that, you know, embody what we need in police officers. And like you said, being a good person, above board. I think I'm going to use that one now. Next time I'm recruiting, we need you to be above board. You know, you're outside, everything you're doing, you're okay talking about it, right? And don't look at it as a deficiency. I always tell them, don't hide that. That is part of your character. You know, you talked about earlier, some of the things you've seen and lived through. And sometimes it takes a while before you can conceptualize and articulate what that is. But I always tell them, look a little bit deeper when any profession, you know, use that as a bonus, as a skill. It might not be on a certificate, it might not be in a diploma, but that is the real world. You know, we talk about, you know, discipline, how to deal with other people, picking yourself up when you're down. Those are all qualities of a great officer and a great employee and just a great person in general, and give back. And I love when the STAG officers, you know, they said they stopped in. I remember Neil brought me there when I was a cadet, and he brought me in, and I was like, wow. And I came back on my own one time, and you greeted me. It's like, hey, how you doing? You know, and like you said, I was like, that's John Elliott. You know, I didn't know he was PICS yet, but, you know, I came back, and you would talk about the program because you're proud of it, you're passionate about it, and you believe in it and the people. So that's a great testament to the program, to you. We appreciate you. You know, we always say we want to give people their flowers, right? And you deserve your flowers from this community. You know, you've been a city councilor. You've been on different boards, youth diversion. Are you still on that? No. I finished youth diversion when I got to council, man. I had so much overwhelm, because when you're a counselor, you have to do
a certain amount of boards and committees as well. I remember trying to get away with doing like 5 or something because I knew I had to work, right? I'm working a full-time job, plus you're a full-time counselor, and you got to do all these boards and committee. And I remember this guy, I could laugh about it now, but I approached him, I'm like, look, man, I can't do all these boards and well, just do what you can, John. So I tried to get away with 5, and I ended up getting saddled with 8, right? And they're like, 8? Man, that's a lot. I'm like, no. Some of them have 17, 18, 19, right? Some of them were just, but I couldn't do it, so Diversions was one of the groups that I loved being on the board with, but I just couldn't manage all of it. So I bowed out, but I kept good relationship with that program as well because we all work in youth. So, yeah.
No, that's a great program. I actually had an officer, I said I was speaking with you, and then they dropped a dime on me. They're like, yeah, I don't know if you know it. Sometimes you're talking to someone and you don't even know you're spitting some knowledge, something that lasts in people's brains that, take them through life. You ever find yourself in those moments?
I don't know. Jay, that's kind of deep, man. I'm one of those types that I like people, right? I always say I legitimately like people. When I'm working, can't really say that outside of work. Was when I'm home, I'm more like just a kind of bit of a recluse when I'm at home. But when I'm working and I'm doing my thing out here, I legitimately like people because I think everybody has something in them of something, right? Something. And I'm like, I have to say to people, just tell me if I'm being too nosy or something because I legitimately want to know who you are. And it's like, why do you need to know all that, John? I'm like, for no particular reason. I won't do anything with it. I'm just wanting to get to know you. So, that's just my personality kind of thing. And I find it very easy to have conversations with just anybody, right? There's always something to talk about and to relate to somebody about. And I don't know how I got that. Maybe it has something to do with that nickname Pickles, but I remember having to guest speak to a group of 200 people that I didn't know. And it was just easy, right? I could do it. But then when I'm sitting with 5 of my own peers, tough. That kind of feeling, right? Yeah, just like real tough. But, certainly getting back to what we were talking about with the police. And one of the things, one of the qualities in the police that I had to learn when I met Dave and Mike, because, man, we didn't always get on with the police, being honest and stuff. Like I grew up in the neighborhood. I didn't get in any trouble with them because I knew better because my mom's, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
that's the original police.
There wasn't a real relationship there until I met Dave and Mike, right? And we developed. I developed a relationship to where I seen those guys for people underneath the uniform, and to me that was important, and that still carries important because they're underneath the uniform. Police are people too, and sometimes people need to understand that, right? Like they just paint them with the brush. Oh, they're police and they're no good. No. Wait a minute. There are people underneath that uniform. That's what you have to get to. And then you'll understand the job that they're having to do. So I was actually privy of that when I worked with those guys. And once I did that, then the rest was, the relationship that we continued to build was because of that, right? And I remember me and Dave Deutsch, God rest his soul, we were sitting in the office one time, and there was an issue that went on in the community, and him and I met in the office. We were talking about it, and we come to a mutual understanding. What goes on here is what we do here. What goes on out there is something different, right? So it was kind of cool. And then Mike, I knew Mike from high school. I always know who he was, and guy with wears his heart on his sleeve, right? Crazy Mike, right? they said, oh, you knew Mad Dog? I said, no. When I met him, he was Puppy Dog, right? He was like real calm and everything, but I always heard the stories about him, when he was kind of going through his career. But now fast forward, and we have the officers and the relationship, what we do now with the police. That's why we're always trying to be collaborative, because like you guys are people, man. Like you have a tough job to do, but that shouldn't define who you are as people. People should get to know who you are as people. Kind of what I'm trying to, make understand. Yeah.
No, there it is. That answered my question. That knowledge you're dropping on us. I just want to let you know we appreciate you. The community does. they always have. To be that long in this community, the longevity, it shows your uniqueness and your passion for the community. So I appreciate you coming out on our second episode. It was great. Once again, thank you everyone listening. 519Connect. You can find us on Twitter, or you can go to the Windsor Police YouTube page to catch this episode. Thank you, John. Take care.
Good stuff. Thank you.